Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Majella and Carlie, two romantically obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead.
So yes, 2025 reading wrap.
Yeah,
this is
it's like book wrap. Fated wrapped.
Fated wrapped for 2024. God, I kept saying 25. We are still in 24.
Oh God, yes, I wrote down 25.
So did I, because this year's been a lot.
We're like desperate to get into the next year. Please, can it be 2025 already?
And I never have said that ever in my life, but this year, see you later. I mean, that's a lie. There's so many good things like this podcast, in our book. We are going to go over that. So let's jump straight in because we're on a roll, and welcome you to the episode. And we're going to just kick off with how Majella and I do this differently. We were planning for this episode, and I love these kind of episodes. These are the episodes I listen to on so many different book podcasts. Like, what did you love of the year? What did you really love? What surprised you? What do I need to add to my TBR? And so I'm like, that's cool. I'm a Fable addict, and so I've got everything listed in Fable month by month, very clear. I'm like, cool. I'm just going to go month by month. And in my head, which I should know better now, I was like, Majella will just go like month by month. Then Majella sends me at 10:09 p.m. my time, which was 9:09 p.m. her time. This is my wrapped. And then she's got all these categories and things. I was like, oh my God, I'm asleep nearly. I can't sit here and prepare that. So this will be a really great example of why we work so well together. And also the behind the scenes of trying to plan a podcast together is like Majella goes, yeah, we do this. And then she goes off into another lane. It's okay. I love it. It keeps me on my toes. So how about you start with your first category while I pull up Fable and go back to January of 2024. And see what I was reading back then and what I loved. And maybe anyway, so yeah, just prepare listeners for a bit of a rando all over the place. But you will get at the end of this episode a great list of books we recommend and have loved.
Well, I think the reason why I created this list, and that's the thing, is I never know what's going to happen in my brain. But you had said, let's like talk about the books and sort of explain what we loved or why we loved it or something. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I need to like corral the ramble in my brain. Because if you said, why did you love, Crimson Moth? I'd be like, well, and then 10 minutes later, we've done one book. So I was like, I'm just going to give them little titles. And then they can just slot into that. And then I could explain if I want to, but I don't have to.
Because I meant in my head, this is so funny. I was like, yeah, we'll just talk about the books we loved and why we loved them as we go through the months of the year. I love you so much. Go with your first category that corralled your thoughts. I love it.
But I also was like, and then you went and looked at my Fable and went, she's put nothing in. And also like at the end of writing that list, I sent Carlie this like frantic message being like, I was like, I remembered this book that I loved. And I was like, I told her about it. I'm sure of it. Like I raved about it. And I couldn't even remember like any character's name. I tried to look up random plot points. I was like, female warrior with king who is a ghost. And I was just like, and nothing, because it's not a huge book yet. Like I think it will be, but it isn't. And it's only the first of a series. And so anyway, and then I remembered, and Carlie was like, it's literally the only book that you recorded in the app anyway, which I just thought was the most ironic thing. But I was just like, that's the book I couldn't remember. And it's the only one that I actually was so excited that I was like,
I just hope all of our listeners are like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm Majella. And then others like, oh gosh, I'm Carlie.
I want to have the organized Fable. I have a lot of Virgo in my chart, and I want the order. I want things to be in lists and in categories and stuff, but it's really fighting a lot of other wildness and chaos. Okay, so the way I kind of just like wrapped up my year is I just thought of books that I loved and then I gave them a little category. And so I think Carlie's going to try and slot in and in some ways, and then she might even come up with her own categories. Who knows?
Let's see where this goes.
Unexpected ride. Anyway, the first thing I said was, what was my most reread series? Because I am a rereader. Carlie is not, but I am a massive rereader. And in the Fable app, they've actually, now you can allocate multiple reading dates throughout the year, so you can read it, which is great because I've actually read, because, you know, when I look at my book wrap up, sometimes I'm like, man, I've only read 40 books, but I felt like I spent the whole year reading. And then I was like, oh, but I did reread my most favorite series currently, which is the Guild Hunter series by Nalini C. And it's got 17 books in it. I have read that 3 times this year. So already that is 34, 44, like 51 books just in a reread. And it's not the only thing I reread, but it's my favorite. And I was saying to Carlie, I've tried to read a couple of books recently, but because there is just so much happening around me, I need a comfort read. I need to step back into a world I know. I don't have the energy to paint these new pictures of new characters, new worlds, new scenarios, new magic systems, especially the couple of books that have been in our book club and that I've tried to read and Carlie did read, but they've got different magic systems and they're a bit darker.
Yes.
So anyway, my most read series is The Guild Hunter. I did it as a comfort read. I fucking love it. So that's my first category. Do you have anything to add? You don't reread.
I haven't reread this year at all, but I guess I could just lead off with just maybe a bit of my stats summary on Fable. On Fable, they give you like a little synopsis or it's almost like a psychological evaluation of you as a reader. And so where it's sitting right now is I am a romance rebel. My collection screams plot twist. I'm a sucker for love in all its dangerous, magical, and comedic forms. Fear not, I won't judge you for swooning over both dragons and lawyers. And that's in reference to the fact that I also read a lot of romance novels alongside my dragon novels. So that's fun. I'm sitting at 47 books for the year. I'd love to get to 50 because of the 2 books that I've got in my mind that I want to finish. So that's where I'm sitting for the year. And I'm really happy with that, being that life has been really, really full. My average rating, do you want to guess what my average rating stars-wise on Fable? Not that we use that. I'll talk to our fated, oh my God.
3.8.
3.6, close.
Ooh. I know you, Carlie.
A bit harsher than Magella is.
Mine is 5.
Yeah, that's kind of my overall stats. So I started the year on a freaking high. I don't know if you remember, but I was in the midst of Throne of Glass in January this year.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So January 1 kicked off with Queen of Shadows, and then I just kept going and finished with Kingdom of Ash, I think maybe late Feb. I've got a TikTok on that. I started the year freaking strong. Really, really strong. And if we look at our fated rating system, which, just a reminder, is like meh, page turner, face burner, and I added in there tearjerker because not all of the books are overly spicy, and by the limited edition.
Yeah.
I actually have the box set Pride of Place up here. So Throne of Glass, start of the year, epicness, really started strong. And we'll find out if anything matched it during the year as we go on.
That's right. And I did a reread of Throne of Glass while that was happening to keep up with Carlie because she's like, I'm here. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to reread it again from the beginning. Yeah. Here we go.
And I think that was my only, or maybe one of 2 nights this year that I've stayed up till 2 a.m. was when I finished Kingdom of Ash. I sent everyone to bed, and I remember that night, like I was prepared, in the zone, on the couch, blanket, snacks that I didn't eat because I felt so sick. And yeah, it was a very late night, but far out it was fun. So that was my January, really. It was all SJM.
Oh, this is great. Maybe I have 12 categories and you have 12 months. So my next category is, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that just be a beautiful synchronicity that just happened? My next book category was, What book did I read the fastest? I read the fastest, and I also put in brackets, and made me squeal and pant the most, was Quicksilver by Carlie Hart. Like, that book I devoured in, like, it felt like an hour. Like, it wasn't, but it was a very fast read because I just, like, it was so easy to dive into. And then once, like, Kingfisher arrived, I was just kind of like, oh, well, I won't be putting this book down now. Sorry, life. I'm in. It just, like, I just haven't read a book that quickly. I don't know if I've ever read a book that quickly. But
yeah, I think that a lot of people felt the same way. Hence the hype.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read that later in the year. But yes, Quicksilver, we've done a whole episode on that. So if you've read it and you want to join in the fanfare for Kingfisher and Cyrus as well. So for me, then moving more into March-ish time frame, I jumped on into Spark of the Everflame. What's the series called? Kindred's
Curse Saga.
Yes. So I read, that would be my quickest series read. I read those books so fast and loved them. That was an interesting one because I remember Magella was like, this FMC is the most annoying FMC in the world, and you threw the book across the room. And I was like,
the guy is so good. And I was like, Wilder. Not Wilder. Luther.
Prince Luther Corbois really shot right up there on my book boyfriend list. But look, the series was just so unique and fast paced. So I read all of them, and we are just still waiting on book 4. But that was my March. It was Pen Cole all day, every day. I really loved that series.
Yes. And I categorized it as had the best book boyfriend, but the most frustrating female lead. Kindred's Curse Saga, Spark of the Everflame by Pen Cole. It was just like, you can listen to our episode about it, and I didn't want to be frustrated, but I just like wanted to drop kick her so many times. Like, and remember we talked about this because I feel like maybe I was like PMSing when I read like 2 of the books because I read them quickly, so it was in the same window. And then maybe the third I was like period or ovulating, so it was different. I was baffled when Carlie was like, no, I didn't find her annoying at all. And I was like, oh my God, the amount of times I nearly threw the book across the room going like, I know you're doing this for the plot. I get why you're doing this, saying this.
Yeah.
But that's a stupid thing you're doing. Like, why are you doing this?
Not alone. So many people felt the same. But I don't know. I think I just got swept up in the uniqueness of it all. It was like, when I look at my March, it's those 3. And I also read Blood and Steel by Helen Schurer in that month too. And I don't know
the first of the legends.
Yeah, I don't know that I shared that with you at that time because it was all about Pen Cole and the Everflame series. And I really feel like, and I don't think I've got it noted down, I read Slaying the Shadow Prince. Oh, maybe, no, I lie. Sorry, I read that one in March because I can't see the cover very clearly on Fable. It's very tiny when you do it like month by month. So I was introduced to Helen Schurer in March as well. So Pen Cole and Helen Schurer. March was a great month. 2 incredible series leapt off from that month. So yeah, March was a win. I read 4 books in March. Seemed to be my average.
Well, that ties into my next category, which was shuffled my book boyfriend list order the most. Legends of Thesma by Helen Schurer. Because Wilder, holy moly, Wilder. And I think that you had told me about this series. I definitely didn't read it in March or April. I feel like I didn't read it till the second half of the year.
Yeah.
And you were like, Madge. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting to it. But I've obviously got to reread the Guild Hunter again somewhere in here. Because
I just need to fit 1,600 books in there before I read.
But I read those books. And I mean, I also loved the female character as well, whose name I cannot recall at all. What is her name?
Thea.
And her sister's name is Ren.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that... not often. I feel like the book boyfriends, it takes a lot to move the top 5 because I'm so enamored with them, and I've gone on journeys, and I probably reread the series that they're in, like Reese and Nyktos, Asher. Like, there's a few that just don't move. But then definitely Kingfisher came up, and Wilder he just changed the whole order. I feel like I was like, do I put him as is he number one? Is he number two? This is unsettling, you know? Like, am I willing to move Daddy Niktos?
The hierarchy in the harem. Yeah. Reverse harem.
You know? That's right. In the beautiful collection of like godlike men that we are now making our standard for all.
Yeah, so March was, me being introduced to Helen Shearer, and then, but didn't dive into the rest of the series for me was like June. Blood and Steel was in June. July was Vows and Dawn, August was Fate and Fury. So I kind of read one a month there, then on. So, yeah.
A lot was happening. I feel like in the middle of the year, a lot was happening.
Yeah, well, March, April, May, June was when, my mum was really, really unwell. And so I am absolutely shocked that in April I read 5 books. But that said, some of them were arcs. So they were really short and some of them I didn't finish because they were really not great. In April, I read all these random genres of book. I only read one romantasy novel, and that was Stacey McEwen's Ledge. So that's when I got introduced to that. So many Australian authors, Helen Shearer and Stacey McEwen in that time for me. So that was cool in April. And then I read like some real smutty romance that was just really light because life was really shit. So I'm looking at some of these covers going, oh, that was so bad but so great. Like,
yes. Wasn't that the ice hockey sojourn?
No, I haven't done a lot of ice hockey this year, to be honest. I talk about it a lot. I've done a lot of cowboy romance, Elsie Silver,
Sure.
and then a whole heap of Emily Henry that I've loved, and Abby Jimenez, which is awesome. They're not too smutty, but I can't even remember the title of this one, but I just remember the guy on the front, and it was so bad and so good. I needed that in April. It got me off. It was great. What's your next category?
Well, tying into the Stacey was the trilogy that I loved the most, and that was the Glacian trilogy. Because I do feel like I have to be like very loyal, because obviously like I loved Spark of the Everflame, but that's 4 books, and I loved the Blood and Legends of Desmar, but that's 4 books. And there are other trilogies coming, but I've only read like 2 of them so far or whatever. But Stacey's is now a completed trilogy, and it is Ledge, Chasm, and Valley. I mean, I enjoyed it immensely, but I also enjoyed it because I feel like I've met Stacey. I love watching her socials. I kind of felt like I was part of the book writing experience in a way. I did really love the characters, and the premise was really cool. And I really loved the love story and the magic and all those kind of things. It probably didn't have as much depth as I would have liked. I would have loved if it could have just been fleshed out a little bit more, just a little bit more kind of visceral, and a few little side things were explored a little bit more. But I feel like for a first trilogy, it was pretty flawless, you know, like there wasn't gaping holes. I didn't kind of go like, oh, that's
unique.
I'll pass that, which is, you know, has come up in other books that I've read. And another book, there's another category I've got, which is like a new author that I really enjoyed, which is Hannah Parker. I'm just going to jump into this next category, is because it ties in together. She started like a little indie book production company, so like a publishing house. And so she's written 2 books in the trilogy, her Severed Realms trilogy, and it's called like August Tithe and August Fire or something. There's 2 of them. She wrote these books while she was also, you know, I guess like finding new authors and publishing them. And so she kind of has these 2, and the publishing is doing or taking up more time than the writing. So she actually has like no date set for when this 3rd book is gonna come out. And I really enjoyed her experience, like her sort of first creation. But that definitely felt like a first creation, whereas I feel like Stacey's, even though I knew it was her first, it still felt like a really good standalone series where I wasn't left going like, oh, I'll just skip past that bit, or like it could have been better. Like I felt like it was really easy to read, like had some beautiful lines. I liked it all. And this other author, I really liked her, but I also feel like I liked her because I knew that she was also writing this alongside creating this like publishing house for new authors. And I feel like that gave me this sense of like this is what she's doing, trying to fathom doing that myself. She is writing these books. She's created this whole world, and they're beautiful books. They're not masterpieces, but they're good to read. And she's creating this beautiful home for new authors where she is supporting their journey and getting them out into the world.
Yeah, very cool. I hadn't heard of that. The amount of times we talk about books, and I've never heard that one. So adding to check that out and follow Hannah Parker is she on TikTok?
Yeah. She's on TikTok and on Instagram. And yeah, she doesn't talk about her book as much anymore because it's more the focus on the authors and everything.
Checking that one out. Very cool. Okay. Nice. So that was your favorite trilogies? And
yeah, like a trilogy and a new author, which is a trilogy, but I've only read the duology so far.
I had so many new authors. I think most of mine were new authors this year. So when I look at my year and I move into sort of May, that's when I read the Shepherd King duology by Rachel Gillig. So One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns. And they were quite unusual for me because I actually haven't read a lot of Gothic kind of fantasy, romantasy, or Gothic horror. That wasn't really a genre I'd really delved into, but it was great. It wasn't the spiciest or smuttiest series that we've read all year. It had enough though, and it was really backed by such a solid plot and really great character arcs that were really had a lot of depth and were very compelling. So the magic system with the cards was really curious, and yeah, just as a reader, like, I want to understand this. I want to understand these cards and how they play them and where they got them and why people have them, why people don't have them. And I really enjoyed this aspect of that series around mental health. So the voice in her head, was that real? Was it not? Was it her? Was it a monster? And just exploring that throughout that series. So that has been a very hyped series all year, and I think for really good reason. Very, very, very solid duology. So I read those in May, and I also listened on audio to one of Kerry Maniscalco's books, Kingdom of the Wicked. I rated it a 3.5 star on Fable, but in ours I would have called that a page turner. So, but I listened to it on audio. So there's this incredible creator on BookTok. Her handle is Listen with Brit with a double T. And she often shares audiobooks that are like next level, because I struggle to listen to romantasy on audio because of the world building and the maps and the realms and the characters and the creatures. But she had recommended Kerry Maniscalco's book, Kingdom of the Wicked, because it has music. It's almost like listening to a play. There's different voices, sound effects. And so I did listen to that, mainly when I was walking and I could concentrate more, and I enjoyed it. But I actually think if I'd read the paperback, I would have DNF'd it. I think that the audiobook just made that experience. So yeah, if you're wanting audiobook romantasy recommendations, Listen with Brit has really, really great ones, and every one that I've listened to, which is not very many, have been fabulous. So that's also what I listened to that month. Did I do a review of it? I don't think I did, but it's a witch. It's about two sister witches and it's set in Sicily, and it's got the character, like the Italian characters, and the nonna character is incredible with the accent, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you're interested in that on audio, that kept me engaged.
Sure. And I'm going to segue into going off the back of your DNF into a book that I enjoyed that most people panned and really didn't like, including Carlie. And that was Reckless by Lauren Roberts.
Yeah.
Which is this follow-up to her first book, which was Powerless. And then I didn't read her middle book, which was Powerful, which is about one of the side characters. And then there's a third book coming, and it's like Peyton and Kai. And I actually I think that they are so digestible for me. Like, they're so fast. They're not a complex or dense style of writing.
Yeah, not at all.
They have definitely like, as everyone has said, pulled massive chunks of plots and ideas from lots of other well-known series. But for me, I feel the emotion of like that connection that they had. And I read it in like a couple of hours, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's so bad. And I was just like, well, you know what? Actually, I'm glad I enjoyed it. Like, and I feel like she's like, yeah. And then she changed her mind. And you was it? Like, you were like, thought about this, and then I was reading it, and then I was like, actually, I don't like it. And did you finish it?
So I read Powerless in January while I was on holiday. And like you, I was like, oh, I was on holiday. It was fast. It was quick. I read it in like a day. And then I ran and pre-ordered it, which was interesting. I think it was really about the energy and the space I was in, because then when Reckless came out, I started and I think I only got like 3 or 4 chapters in, and I was like, I'm forcing myself to read this. And I absolutely could have read it, and probably read it with in mind thinking, oh, we'll do a podcast chat about it, or I'll chat to Magella about it. Yeah, it was not for me. It was not for me. So that was a meh on our rating scale.
Sure. Mine would have been a page turner for me.
And I didn't finish it. And usually I'm like, I paid for this, I'll finish it. But I just couldn't do it.
I get it.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
I think as well, like our styles evolve, and sometimes our standards are higher. And I honestly feel like definitely in parts of our cycle, and also like our mental state, like as like one of my other categories is a book I keep picking up, but I just keep putting it down. And that's Phantasma, which you loved. And it's because it's requiring too much of me right now to step into a world that is different, and this writing style is different. It's darker, it's more gothic. I just can't, like mentally and emotionally, I'm just struggling to push through to get to the bit where I can hook in to the flow of the book.
It's all part of the reading journey, isn't it? It really is just all part of the reading journey. And I was looking at like what was my lowest kind of rating, and that would be meh on our system. And that for me was Feybound by Sarah or Sarah. I don't know it's Saara. And I really apologize. I just have never heard it, so I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Alarifi is her last name. She's very, very popular. It's a real big bestseller. And
I think I've got it on my Kindle, but I haven't read it.
I waited for this to come in from the library, and it just fell so flat. It was an incredible premise. In the first half, I was like, whoa, this is wild, and I'm loving it. And then it just fell away in the last half. It was astounding how it just literally was like, man, I can't even bring myself to pick this up every night. I don't know, one day I just put in the effort and got through it, but I definitely didn't go, or I'm not excited for book 2. So that fell really flat for me, and that was something that I thought I'd really love. And so that happens as well, and that's all good. And it's nothing, nothing bad about me or the author or anything. It's just not my cup of tea. So I did read that one around June as well. What else did I read in June? I read a lot in June. So Chasm, so book 2 for the Glacian trilogy. I read a few Emily Henrys there because I love Emily Henry so much. And June was when I got onto Blood and Steel for the Thesma series. And and that was when I met Wilder and seriously considered whether I wanted to be married anymore or whether I should go off
and find your own Wilder. Like, where is Wilder?
Blades and join some kind of army and find my Wilder. Because that man, and Thea too, my gosh, the FMC in that series is next level as well.
Very likable. She's very has the same feeling that I get when I think of Aylin. It's like there's this true courageous spirit that feels like it burns very clean. And her emotions, she's very truthful, I feel like, with her emotions too. Even when she's having petty jealousy, or she's resentful, or she's fighting with her sister, I feel none of it feels where you're just just get over yourself. You're I would totally feel the same way, and that's such a valid reaction. Absolutely. And you're being so upfront about it, and you're not manipulating how we feel. You're just here's some ugly parts of me, and I'm yes.
Yeah. Such a great series. Oh my gosh. If you it's so hard, isn't it? What would I recommend number 1? I'm probably that series this year.
I know. It's so hard because it's what do you want from the series? Because I feel Throne of Glass is such an incredible arc, but there are slow points too, and there are bits where you're but it's the epicness of those final couple of books seems to just shine over the whole series. Whereas I feel Legends of Thesma was great from the very beginning. I didn't have a build up to be get through to the 3rd book and it'll be, I'm first book, loved it, second book, loved it, so I feel that's different. I'm just going to segue there into my most anticipated book installment, which was the next one in the Blood and Ash series, which again is really divisive. People are either like obsessed and, you know, like that Castile and like Ash, Nyktos are their like top book boyfriends, or they're just like, book one was good, but then, oh my God, I hate the narration style. It's all blah, blah, blah. But I love it, and I feel like it has been a reread series for me as well. And also I love that there's two timelines and the same world, but two kind of distinct like heroine and like book boyfriend sort of like world, and they collide. And this is the book before the book where it all gets wrapped up, because now it's like an 8 or 9 part series, so there's like, you know, 4 in one and 6 in the other, and she's done like a compendium and blah blah. But I just remember that I read the last book like last November or something, and I was just like, oh my God, I've got to wait like 7 or 8 months or some exorbitantly long time. Yeah. And then I got it and I read it and I was like, oh my God, I loved it. But, you know, like it's just, then I read it and then I'm like, okay, now I've got to wait another year for the next, which is, and I think the final one. Anyway, but that was my most anticipated.
Did it live up to your expectations?
It did, because I feel like it is, at this stage, it is so crazy and wild that I don't expect it to get more wild. I just want to have some sense of peace and closure for these characters, because I'm just like, oh my God, there has been some fucked up shit happen, and you guys deserve a break, because you guys really love each other. And man, could you just like go and have like really hot uninterrupted sex without one of you potentially dying, you know? So I feel like it was great. I just really love being back in that world.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Okay. I wonder if I'll ever get to that series. I don't know.
I mean, it's a big commitment I feel like, I mean, he is my number one book boyfriend.
I know, that's what keeps it kind of there for me, but then I'm just never compelled to read it. So we'll see. Who knows what it will bring. Who knows? Okay, so for me, moving into like July, August, I remember how exhausted I was, in like recovery mode, because my mum had finally left my house and gone back to her own. She was kind of starting to get better, and I was just like, I just fell in a heap. And I read lots of Elsie Silver, like, which for me is just a little bit of junk food. It's just so quick and easy. They're like 350 pages and they're just cowboy romances, really. But in this genre, I did get onto Vows and Ruin and Fate and Furies, book 2 and 3 in the Legends of Thesma, and I got through those. And then I found my love of Abby Jimenez, and so I dived into her books, which Magella will probably never read, but they are exceptional romance with depth of character. And The Idea of You, because I loved the movie on Netflix. So I was in like my romance era in July, August. I needed something lighter, a bit like you. I just didn't have the capacity to dive into new worlds or read anything that was going to take too much energy. So yeah, July, August is kind of romance and a bit of Legends of Thesma. Again, going to highly recommend that everyone adds that series to their...
Yeah, just do it. So my category, and because I feel like you must be coming up to this book, but my category for the most surprising book that I didn't expect to love as much as I did was The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. I don't know. It's Italian, and I'm definitely killing that name, but anyway, Cicerelli was it was so great. It was just like so easy to read. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I mean, it was hyped. I got it from a couple of TikTokers that I follow who were like, this book is amazing. And so I was like, okay. And it's actually called by a different title in America.
I've got it as Atlas Hunter, The Crimson Moth Book 1.
Yes. I'm very excited because that's a trilogy, I think, isn't it? So
apparently it's going to be. And yes, a New York Times bestseller. So this is like a thrilling tale of a witch vigilante Rune entangled in a dangerous romance with witch hunter Gideon. And I mean, he was great. She was great. It was so good. I read that one really quick. I was very proud of myself. I think I read it in like 2 weeks, which is really quick for me. Yes. So it says on Goodreads, book 2 is coming, but I think it's going to end up being a 3. And she's got lots of books, actually. The Last Namsara, The Caged Queen, The Skyweaver. She's written quite a few.
Yes, I feel like I should read more of hers, but
And I did.
My TBR is too long.
I put this one right up there, like face burner, tearjerker. Wasn't by limited edition, but we'll see with the rest of the series, maybe.
That's right, yeah.
But definitely more than a page turner. And I think on Fable I gave it 4 stars, which is quite high for me. So that was great.
And I think sitting right alongside that, which I don't think you've read yet, is another book that I've just called in the appropriately hyped category. The book that I felt like literally said it did everything that the people said it would, and that was Vesselus. And I don't think that was an appropriate, like they said it was the new ACOTAR. And I actually feel like that way of categorizing anything sets you up for failure, because nothing is ACOTAR, and ACOTAR is like now set in this weird lore and world of its own. I just think a comparison to that is just setting yourself up for failure. But I would put it next to the same kind of Crimson Moth energy of like, it was an interesting, very different magic system. It's like Vesselus is literally like the powerful people in society wear a vessel, like a ring, on their hand to control a spirit, to be able to access the power of that particular spirit. But, it's only available to the elite in society. So they already have another advantage. So they're elite, so they've got money, they're royalty, whatever. Then they actually get this additional power from spirit. And of course, when you are connected to a spirit, there's always things that can happen, and there are drawbacks and pros and cons, but it just again felt like I was ready to read it. It was so easy to read, and I felt like it had the right level of hype. Like I was like, oh my god, yes, this was actually great and actually very different, and I actually just sucked it up. So
you did. Got lots of messages about that one. Generally it's capital letters, so good, and depending on how many O's are in the good,
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars. Yeah, I have added that to my TBR. And did you do a solo episode on that or not?
I think so.
It was a TikTok. Maybe it was a TikTok review.
Oh, yes, I started to do some long form reviews, and then that stopped because life again. But it was one of the long form reviews where I did the new rating system, which actually has like a list of questions to answer each time, so that there's this consistency across the board, whereas so everyone can just expect the 5 stars every time, and how many I mean the 5 stars means that I can't differentiate, but the new system means that like it can still be 5 stars, but it's like a face burner, so you're expecting lots of smut.
So that was your most surprising. I don't know. I can't think of that for my category. But what I'm going to say is the next sort of few months for me were amazing. October and November and now December were some of my most enjoyable reads. So October, I got into the world of Kingfisher and Sayrus. So that's when I read Quicksilver. And that one lived up to the hype. Absolutely. So I was skeptical. I'm always skeptical of hype because I am a bit more of a not harsher, but just, I don't know. Not everything's 5 stars and not everything's a by the limited edition for me. So I was like, Quicksilver. All right, I'll do it. And it was great. I do remember for me, the first sort of 40%, I was like, meh. But then at like 50%-ish, I was just like, let's go. This is amazing. And we have done a full review of that one. So if you want to dive a bit deeper into Quicksilver, so that one. And then straight away on the back of that, dived into Phantasma. And that was another wicked world and a bit more gothic and dark again. So that was interesting to have a few of those reads this year and just sort of dabble in that world. And I remember messaging, I'm like, come on, Magella, like it's rare that we're reading the same books. And that's why I was like, surely she read it, because I sent her so many messages about that bloody book and you hadn't read it.
I just couldn't. I was like, no, I've reread the series again. I just read 17 books in the time that you read 2, but they were rereads. So, I almost read them on autopilot.
So Phantasma, if you guys haven't heard of it, you probably have, because it has been very, very successful for Kaylee Smith. I can't wait to do a review episode with Magella on this. It is set in I was going to say fantasy world. All of our books are. But within a fantasy world, it's set in like a fantasy house. Like I kind of pictured it like a circus house / ghost, the ghost ride at the fair that you go to and you're like, go to the show, go through the ghost ride. And there's trials and manipulation of what's real and what's not, and then there's obviously our beautiful romantic love story in there. So that was great. I really enjoyed that. And I think actually now thinking about it, I've done a solo.
Yes, you did a solo episode on something.
Now I'm thinking about it. What have I done in the last few weeks? Oh my God. It's been hectic. So yeah, if you want to dive in there, and then we might try and do one together at some point if it ever comes off the TBR for Magella. So I had, that was next for me. Do you have another category that you need to talk through?
So I've got like two last categories, which was classics that I picked up again and series that I read every year.
Yes.
So the classics that I picked up again, I actually did the Chronicles of Narnia, and I think that's maybe because on TikTok there was all these like little like snippets of the movies again, and like where are the actors now and stuff. And I just remembered how much I loved that series, and like how big my emotional journey was through that, like how much fear I had and like worry for, you know, what was happening with the White Witch, and how much I loved Aslan. And anyway, so I reread that and cried. I was just like, oh my God. And also, like, I don't read a lot of the theories about what that's based on and about the author, because I don't want that world ruined at all. Like, I don't want people to tell me that it's got religious ties or that it was written in Nazi Germany or whatever the weird conspiracy things are. You know, I just want it to be this world where you literally step through a wardrobe and you're in this magical place. So I reread that, and then every year I reread Harry Potter because it is my ultimate comfort read. And also I read it because my last category is what am I hoping to read by the end of the year? And Manacled is on that. And so I feel like even though I know the world of Harry Potter so well and I've watched the movies and you know, I feel it's so strange that Carlie hasn't, because it feels like the very first romantasy series. Like it was the doorway to my romantasy world. Like, you know, wizards and like magical creatures and like romance, but the very like PG romance, and good, the battles of good and evil and life lessons and anyway, so I reread that every year, and I've actually got like two copies of it. I've got like a copy that I don't look at because it's like hardback and beautiful, and then I've got like the copy that I was given when my mum first bought it for me, because she's a teacher librarian, so she always used to bring home all these books, and she brought home the first Harry Potter and said, you know, like, this is, you know, everyone's reading this, everyone loves it. And I was just like, oh my God, Mom, I'm like 20 whatever, like this looks like it's a book for an 11-year-old, like, because the cover as well just looks terrible. Anyway, I think I resisted for a few months because I don't like to do anything that's expected. And then, of course, I picked it up and I was just like, what do you mean I'm waiting for the rest of these books to be written? This is stupid. And then I read it, and then I was basically like a Harry Potter head for secret. I wasn't. I wish I'd been open. I wish I'd been open about like being a book nerd and how much I loved books and how much I loved being in other worlds, because I feel like I would have found my people much sooner. I would have had that really beautiful group of like friends that were like just genuine and into the same things. Whereas I feel like I spent, you know, like high school and my early 20s trying to be everything and everyone to different people in different groups. And, you know, I just feel like, man, there was just whole parts of my identity that I just was like, no, that's not cool. And looking back, of course, it would have been fucking cool. It would have been so cool. I could have really leaned into being like the book girl with like cute little t-shirts and my book bag. You know, so many movies have the girl as the nerd, you know, this, and then she like pulls out her hair and suddenly she's like, hot. Yes, exactly. Anyway, that's they're my last two categories. And then the last main category is that what do I want to read by the end of the year, and that's Manacled, which we were going to try and do it together, but I don't know if I'm actually in the mental and emotional state to handle it. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is our Carissa Broadbent love affair, and I think we're both debating if we should buy the hardback. And then I want to read.
I'm not debating at all. I'm getting the limited edition before reading it, because somebody amazing who I love very dearly bought me the first two with the sprayed edges, so I need the set.
Sure, I get it. I totally get it. Okay. And then my last two books are When the Moon Hatched and Phantasma. They're the four that I would like to read in the last like 3 weeks of the year, because I keep picking them up and putting them down, picking them up, putting them down. But I'm at the end of the Guild Hunter series. I've got one book left to read. So I feel like it's time. It's time to go and start.
I am going to plead with you to please read When the Moon Hatched, because that's the final book I'm going to talk about in this episode, because I finished it. I don't know if it was last week or the week before. We read it in our November book club, and I'm so glad, because I didn't have Magella to read alongside, that I had the book club. It is my top read of the year. Stunning. Like, okay, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, but hang on, you read Kingdom of Ash. Is it equal? Yeah, I think it is. It's far out, guys. Absolutely stunning are the words that I can share with you without spoiling anything if you haven't read it. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. And that's all I'm going to say.
5 stars, 5 stars. So good.
Absolutely. Buying the limited edition of that one. Excited to read more from Sarah Parker. Flawless, amazing, like everything you want and more. I can't talk more highly about it. And I'm so happy that I got to read that in November. And thank you to the book club, because that was a pick that I think someone else suggested. I mean, it's been on our list all year, but it just, Magella keeps saying it's so big, Carlie, but it's so big. And I kept going, oh, well, I just can't. And the book club really forced me to read it and get on there, because I knew Magella was in no space to jump into that new world. So I was like, I'm going to carry the book club in November. And then I was just like, oh my God, this is so incredible. And so I know if you listen to the podcast and you're in our book club, you would have seen it was the most active month in our club, because people were just so excited. And people who'd read it earlier in the year were in there saying, oh, I'm so happy you're at this chapter and you've just read this and experienced this. It is unbelievable. I will stop now, but that was my last read. Now, what do I want to read towards the end of this year? I do want to finish A Fate Inked in Blood, because we're reading that in our book club. I'm happy to do Manacled if you feel like you've got capacity and mental strength for that. I can buddy you, because I'm about to sort of get into really sort of quiet time at work and have some leave. So I'm going to have hopefully a little bit more reading time. And I've got a couple of arcs to read as well. So I'm just probably going to just keep my list for the rest of the year pretty light, because it's only a couple of weeks left. But I'd love to get on and do an episode, maybe early Jan, we could release it, of our most anticipated releases for 2025. What's coming, update everyone. We know there's a really big one in January with Onyx Storm. Like, just get our book people on the same page. Plan it. 2025.
Are you going to do a reread of like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame to get back into the Onyx Storm vibes?
I want to say yes, but I probably won't have time to do that. I'd love to be a rereader. I just don't have the space or time. There's so many other books to read. Maybe a skim. I will definitely, because I always do, fall down the TikTok hole of people's theories and just be like, oh, like, what? But I forget most of the books, so most of them probably won't be relevant to me. I'll be like, what are they talking about? I can't remember that bit. But anyway, it's an exciting time. We can talk about that on another podcast. Is that all your categories? That kind of worked well. Me going through matched up. We had some that was similar. We had some that were different. I've got another series to add to my TBR with the Severed Realms. Is that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
Anna Parker. It's a good year. It was a really solid year. As we said and have said continually on this podcast and on our socials, this year was again about reading for fun. No pressure, and we couldn't. We had to take all the pressure off. Probably by March, April, I realised there was just no plan for this year. It's been fun. We've been exposed to lots of new authors. We've made friends with some authors online. Magella's met one. We have wanted to get a lot of them on the podcast. It hasn't happened this year, but hopefully next year we want to support them. It's been such a great reading year. Really enjoyed it.
It has.
Yeah.
It has. I would be curious to see how many I've read. So I will go and update the Fable app. I will try and put them in
and
order.
Put it on our socials. Everyone will love to hear. So 632, I'm predicting. And I think that probably 595 of them are Nalini Singh.
My poetry book is almost ready. I just have to keep saying it publicly so that it actually happens. But it is in the final stage. So it will be out by the end of 2024, and
amazing. It'd be a great Valentine's Day gift, maybe.
That's right. Yeah. Or just an anytime day gift for
Oh,
anyone.
yes. Of course.
Anytime.
Of course. Yeah. And look, I've
Yeah.
got about, I don't know, maybe 150 books here on my bookshelf that I still haven't read. So who knows what I'll pick up. It will be a wild ride. But other than that, I think we're done with our 2024 reading wrap. Hope you enjoyed it.
And we'd love to hear what you read. Yes. Like, tell us. Pop it in the comments. Come and follow us on socials. If we have got a gaping hole in our reading list where you were just like, this book was incredible, or this series, or this author, we would love it. And also, just telling us what you loved hearing about the most. Is it deep dives on the books? Is it the philosophical musings about what reading does for the world? Is it the gifts? Is it the ways to make reading a better experience? Is it just hearing us ramble and interrupt each other and get distracted about tell us what you love. So we can do more of it.
We'll take that on board, absolutely, as we plan for the new year. But yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, we hope you've loved this episode. We'd love to have you review us on all of the podcast channels. Feel free to join our book club, as we always say, and we will chat to you really, really soon. See you later.
Yes. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you felt like you were eavesdropping on a conversation that you have been dying to have with someone to discuss all the tiny details and possible plot twists of the books that you've recently read. Perhaps you don't have someone to chat to after you finish one of those epic books, so please give the show a follow and we would be honoured to be your book-obsessed friends. But mostly though, we hope it was fun, it gave you a giggle, it made you gasp or encouraged you to pick up a different author. Please share it with someone who you think would also love it, and drop us a review, letting us know what you loved and what you want to hear from us in the future. We will be back with another episode soon. Happy reading.